Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Our guest today is Martine Lemos. So Martine, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do.
Hi, Dan. Thanks for inviting me. Very thankful to be here and happy. I'm Martin. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Nemu. We're a multi-touch attribution software, and I'm currently in Brazil. But I lived in the US for a while, and I'm coming back soon.
Awesome. Well, I'm curious more about your story. Like, how did you kind of get into this business?
Yeah, so it's a long story. Basically, Nemu is my third business. So I started my first business when I was in college. It was an e-commerce. It was in 2019, second year of college. And basically, I'm an industrial engineer, so it was kind of different from what I was supposed to do there. But the business worked. And in the pandemic, we grew a lot and we acquired 40,000 customers, mostly by paid media. So basically that changed the course of my life. Then in 2021, iOS 14 happened for the paid media world. And that's when our acquisition costs rose a lot by 40, 50%. That's when I started an agency. We did paid media, but we grew a lot by mostly doing a YouTube and TikTok service. So like organic, so much different from e-commerce. But then I sold that agency and started Nemu to solve what was my biggest challenge in my e-commerce, which was attribution and tracking. So that's when we started. We wanted to do something scalable, global, and we weren't doing that in my agency. So that's why I sold it and started Nemu. And right now, business doing great. We have over 300 customers, and we're growing our presence in the US as well.
Awesome. So I'm just curious about your first business. Like, what product or service were you marketing on Meta?
So basically, we sold products for women. Basically, the main product I sold was a bra. So basically a strapless bra. So it was a brand, but I wasn't focused on the branding side of it, only the performance marketing side of it. So trying to find a good product that customers liked, but most importantly, that had unit economics. So basically that I could scale a lot. So we needed to have a good margin. So our markup was 4 or 5. And basically that's what got the business to scale, because we tried to find products that had a lot of demand already. And then we could be competitive on cost, but mostly on marketing. So our marketing was pretty good, and that's what got us able to invest a lot in media and then grow.
For sure. And were you focused only on the Brazilian market or selling in the States? What did that kind of look like for you?
We started in Brazil, but then we expanded to Latin America. So we even sold to Mexico. At that time, we didn't sell to the US. Actually, a lot of our business was to try to replicate things that worked in the US into Latin American markets.
Awesome. So I'm just curious more about Nemu. So let's kind of jump ship and talk more about that. So I'm curious, how does the software work exactly, and how do you work with e-commerce brands?
Okay. So basically, about the problems. The problem is, attribution and tracking. Basically, you start by looking at those things when you're spending a lot in paid media. And then you have a budget, and you're trying to optimize that budget. So how do I spend my money correctly, basically? And that becomes a mess when it's difficult to measure the ROI of every specific channel. Because when, let's say, a customer goes into a Facebook ad, Instagram ad, then into a TikTok ad, and then goes into Google, searches for a brand, and then buys, every platform is going to take credit for it. So basically, Facebook is going to say the conversion was theirs. TikTok is also going to say the same thing, but you only had one sale, right? So from a financial standpoint, you should have attribution to one channel only, but there are 3 channels taking credit, and that becomes a mess when you have when you're spending several $100,000s and more. So that's when you need to optimize. And that happens from a very small level, such as, I'm only doing Meta and email, and I don't know exactly what were the campaigns that brought the customer in the first place. And then my email bought because UTMs, which are the main technology to measure the campaigns, is lost generally in the journey. So what we do is we track the entire customer journey from the first click to the last click. And we have a dashboard where customers can see this data, but specifically they can attribute the ROI for specific campaigns or creatives. So basically by tracking the entire customer journey, we're the source of truth, basically, because we know exactly which campaigns the customer went for. Was it top of funnel, bottom funnel? That's very impactful in terms of results, because you're not depending on biased platforms such as the ad manager or Google Analytics, for instance, that basically is owned by Google, right? So that's basically, we integrate all the data sources from the e-commerce, such as Shopify and Meta and Google and etc. And then we provide like a clear view, like putting some glasses on to know exactly how to put your money in the right place.
For sure. And I guess in terms of like where it makes the most sense. So does somebody have to be omni-channel? Do they have to have like a certain amount of spend per day? Like, what are some of the criteria that you look for somebody to actually be one of your customers?
Yeah. Okay. So basically the least they need to have in revenue is about 20K a month. I would say like if you invest $10,000 a month, I think that's a good spend to like feel the impact of it. Of course, you could use less with less, but it's more about the maturity of the customer, because being able to dedicate energy to learn and for it to make the most of it. But we serve brands. Our biggest e-commerce here, they do $250 million a year. So basically, the bigger the e-commerce, the bigger is going to be the impact, because if we change like 5-10% of their ROAS, it's millions of dollars. And basically, for specifically this e-commerce, we help them grow from 6 million a month, 22 million a month. So it was a huge impact, because basically they already had a very validated business model, but they couldn't scale paid media. And because basically you need to understand your numbers in a very profound way. Basically, we help them. So basically, in the US specifically, we're targeting customers from 1 million a year to 100 million a year. That's our target. If they're bigger than that, we can serve them. But sometimes those business have a omni-channel, like they have Amazon or they have retail, and we're targeting only D2C e-commerce. That's something we're bringing, the integration with marketplaces and MMMs that measure the entire all channel journey. But right now we're focused on the e-commerce side of it.
For sure. So if somebody's only doing Meta as a channel, right, and they meet your revenue criteria, would that not make sense because they're just doing Meta, or could they still get value from your platform?
They could get value from the platform, because generally, if they only use Meta, they're using email as well, or they're using there's also the combination with, let's say, Meta and the organic demand they're generating through the Meta ads. So basically customers are going into an ad, but then going into Instagram and then following you. But even if you only had Meta, let's say, it would still be interesting, because we can have the entire customer journey of Meta. And then you can say okay, there's a campaign that brought the customer in the first place, and there's a campaign that closed the customer in the first place. So by doing that, you could optimize your ad spend as well. And in the ads manager, you're only going to see the one campaign is not very transparent in that way.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, that you mentioned that you're based in Brazil. Most of your clients right now, or customers, are in Brazil. How do you see kind of the difference here in the US as you kind of are targeting more of the US market, in terms of ad spend on channels? What does that breakdown kind of look like from your perspective on the outside looking in, US versus Brazilian market?
So basically, what the difference between the US and Brazil is the US market is more mature and it's more expensive to advertise in the US. In Brazil, you still have e-commerces that they can profit on the first sale. And that's not very common in the US. That's why most brands, they need to go omni-channel, because the D2C is not profitable, or they really need to do that. So, but the market is changing. So I think what happens also in the US is you have more diversification of media channels. In Brazil, is mostly Meta and Google. And people are discovering TikTok. Their Pinterest is not that high, the investment they do. And in the US, I've seen like customers use Reddit, Microsoft ads, the diverse, and TikTok is kind of, I've seen a lot of people that do TikTok ads.
Right. So you're saying in Brazil, it's not as many channels. In the US, to your point, people are on Bing, they're on, Reddit, they're on Snapchat, like there's so many different social media channels that people are actively using in Brazil. It's not as diversified because I think just part of it, right? Like if it costs you less to acquire customers on a certain channel, you don't have as much of a desire to sit and add new channels if you're crushing it like on Meta.
Yeah, exactly. But it's actually about the people as well. Like people in Brazil, they have different patterns and behaviors when you say social media. And in the US, like use Snapchat and iMessage, and you don't use a lot of WhatsApp. But in Brazil, WhatsApp is like, dude, everyone uses WhatsApp. So like it's part of the Meta ecosystem, and Instagram, like, and Facebook, even like Facebook people aren't using that much, but I think that's mostly, and these are very consolidated social media platforms. So I think customers in the US are more spread out into different platforms. And in Brazil, it's like a new adoption or something. And TikTok is growing a lot. So I really believe that. And yeah, so exactly what you said about the diversification, because it's expensive. And we've seen a lot of use cases here with Nemu of trying to leverage one channel to make an impact into the other. So one thing we're trying to like teach customers is that you don't need to see channels as competitors. So you're going to say, I'm investing in Meta and the ROAS is worse than Google, so I'm going to pause the campaigns in Meta or TikTok, for instance. But instead, you should think of there's a customer journey and every channel is going to play a part of it. So like a soccer team, for instance, one of them is going to kick the ball and the other is going to conduct. And then there's Google, who's always like kicking at the goal. And that's what we're seeing. TikTok, for instance, is a very good top of funnel channel, but it may not drive conversions.
Correct.
But it brings you the customer in a cheap way. So your cost per click is going to be a lot lower than Meta. And then Meta's not going to do the same thing they're doing, but the customer's been acquired, or not even acquired, but they discovered your brand because of it.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, it's 100% accurate and very interesting as well. So obviously right now we're kind of like at the halfway point here of 2025. So what are you guys focused on for the rest of this year?
Yeah, so as a company, you say? Products?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Product, features, strategy, things, stuff like that.
Okay. So in Brazil, we're targeting enterprise e-commerce. The market is very different in Brazil than the US, but we're targeting enterprise customers in Brazil. And in the US, we have a lower threshold basically to target customers. And we're developing some very interesting features with AI. So basically AI into data insights. So basically we already have the most advanced data system in the market, but we're working on how do customers reduce their time to analysis and their comprehension. So basically the AI recommends insights on, okay, so there's a gap here into attribution. So a campaign that you were going to manage in a certain way, we recommend you to do this way because of that, and that. And we also provide the history for that. So that's something that that's an innovation we're working a lot. And also different measurement systems. So we're doing MTA right now, which is multi-touch attribution, but we're also working into incrementality and marketing mix modeling, which are 3 solutions that are going to answer specific questions, all of them differently. But the key here is to integrate all of them into one tool. So in that way, you can have a strategic, tactical, and operational impact into your marketing team. So basically, you could validate where should I allocate budget, but with the MTA, you're able to manage campaigns in a daily level. So we're working on different products, basically innovation, and we have a very rapidly growing partnership with agencies program. So basically, that's our main strategy for growing in the US. That's working pretty well.
Awesome. So if you could go back in time to before you started Nemu, what is the one biggest piece of advice that you wish you knew?
Before starting Nemu or e-commerce or everything?
Either one, yeah. I mean, before Nemu, even like before your entrepreneurship journey.
Yeah, it's that I wanted to know because, one thing that comes into my mind is that it's difficult to have a clear view of what you're trying to do before you actually do that. So basically for Nemu, it only made sense to start Nemu because I had the e-commerce and the agency. So I knew the product very well. I didn't know exactly what I was doing because like theory is much different than reality, but it started from an experience. It started from a pain point. So I think it's like a good choice that I made was try to make money. And let me explain that because of course, everyone's trying to make money. But basically, by trying to make money, I was able to find the e-commerce market, which was something that was actually practical. So I didn't start, let's say, Nemu from anything theoretical. I started from something that I actually had the practice in e-commerce. And by making money is not like you actually know what you're doing because you only make money when you know what you're doing. So that's basically the thing. And basically to sum it all is like it's difficult to know before you actually do that.
No, 100%. That's really good advice. So if somebody watching this show wanted to reach out to you, or if they wanted to use Nemu, do you mind sharing your social media, website, I guess best ways to get in contact?
Okay. So our website, it's usenemu.com. And you can find me through LinkedIn as well, which is Martine Lemos or Martine Nemu if you type linkedin.com. And yeah, just reach out. You can schedule a demo or something. And if you have an interest in our partnership program, we serve agencies as customers. So a paid media agency can go through our program. And if they have like 10 or 10, 30, 100 customers, we can serve them individually as a key account. So that's interesting for agency owners because sometimes the customer is going to pay for the product, but we can serve you and that can also improve your SOPs of the agency.
Makes sense. Well, Martine, thanks so much for your time today.
Dan, thank you so much. Count on me.